What's your earliest memory? Do you have one that goes deep? For me, it's sitting by the kitchen window as Adela holds me in her arms. She was our maid and nanny in Mexico, where I grew up. One afternoon, my family simply disappeared. I was left alone in the world. Mother, father, brothers, gone. Actually, they'd just gone shopping and forgot to tell me. But a little kid, I thought it was the end, just wept in terror. Oh, wow. Adela just sat me in her lap by the window, gazed out at the evening sky, and slowly stroked my head. She would keep me comforted until my parents returned. I'd always remember that. Yes. There's a sense in which we're trying to get back to some cozy place, to home, and that's the picture that embodies it for me. Our first human parents had a pretty cozy place in the Garden of Eden. Nice setup, nice home, you know? Well, you know what they say about Adam and Eve having the ideal marriage? Well, he didn't have to hear about all the men she could have married. She didn't have to hear about the way his mother cooked. In Eden, this couple had a special kind of cozy. They could actually take walks in the evening with the Almighty, chatting. It's like sipping lemonade in the front porch with the Creator, and the backyard is like Tahiti. Imagine their chats there in the garden. So tell us, Lord, what it's like inhabiting eternity, throwing out a handful of stars. Your bedtime stories picture a universe that nothing ever mars. How do days end up there in heaven? Is there a quietness in your might? Do angels fluff the pillows and a spirit turn down the lights? Surrounded by clear waterfalls, orchids, and gazelles, we lie down in a sanctuary of exotic sights and smells. The wonder is, we belong amid this fellowship of the created. We're an open hand ensures we're always filled, never sated. Yes, right here, naming the animals, waving sunset down to splash in the ocean, we have found a perfect home for this divine devotion. Well, the Bible starts out in Eden, that perfect home, but it was lost in time. Human race has to begin outside of paradise, and deep inside we're trying to get home again some way. Cozy. That's what marriage is like when it first starts out and chemistry bubbles, your heart feels held. Every marriage is an attempt to create its own little Eden. It's a home. Wow. The patriarchs were the first people to try to get home, and God was going to create for them in the wilds of Canaan, carve out a space. He promises, I've got great plans for you, make you a great nation. It's not Eden, but it's a nice neighborhood. Well, sometimes the patriarchs did get a little lost in the way. You know, men never ask for directions. But eventually, Jacob settles down in Canaan with his 12 sons, got a life prospering there. Flocks and herds increasing. That's the early time of your life. Full of promises. Raising your kids. Got your foot in the promised land. In my case, bought a home in Southern California, nice big windows in the living room, Italian cypress in the backyard. Yeah, our boy and girl blossoming. We're the chosen, yeah. Somehow, however, you end up a slave in Egypt. That's where the chosen found themselves, making bricks for Pharaoh. How did that happen? You wonder the same thing after some misfortune, tragedy, when a marriage falls apart. In Egypt, you ask, where's the plan? I don't see a plan. Whatever happened to God working together for good? Being the chosen. You see a big accident. It's your fault I got a divorce or lost a loved one, whatever. So you fumble for a way out somehow. I was like the guy who heard that 90% of all road accidents happen within 5 miles of your home. So he moved. I moved, rented a bare room, and there was ugly gray walls, dirty brown carpet, bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling. This is my destination? Come on. But through all the shock, anger, disappointment, you just want to have an exodus, see? Like the children of Israel, get free. Get out of Egypt, Pharaoh, any way you can. Get out. So, after that, you're running as fast as you can, away from whatever binds you, and you run smack into Mount Sinai. Yeah. Just want to be free, and there's this big mountain. Lots of fire and smoke. And hot off the griddle, the 10 Commandments. You've just won the Exodus sweepstakes. First prize, a week at Mount Sinai. Second prize, 2 weeks. And then, there are all these regulations around the temple. This fine print of the covenant. And you just don't get it. All these dietary precepts about what's clean, unclean. Hey, if we're not supposed to eat all the animals, what did God make them out of meat? The law is a big obstacle, seems like it, and it points out your inner contradictions. Hey, if I really concentrate, okay, I can get very cheerful. I can find things to be thankful for. So, I open up to the Lord in prayer, and He sees that I'm oh so very happy. La la la, beautiful day. Yes, the law can make you do a double take in the mirror. We're always messing up, and the law can seem like God's big stick. This having to whack people over the head with it. This big, no give, no bend, straight arrow. That's how the law looks when you're reacting to misfortune or running for your life. What's the point of all these ancient do's and don'ts? I wanted to do my own thing, unencumbered. So. Sometime after the divorce, I'm racing down 405 in LA. Heard about this Christian soiree for singles in a country club in Newport Beach. It's going to be my coming out party. And I imagine all the gorgeous people, beautiful gowns, glamorous good looks. Yes. But inside, everybody there looked like they'd been run over by a Mack truck. I mean, there were attractive, stylish people, of course, but the things their ex had done to them scrolled across their faces. Well, I listened politely to the war stories, you know. It's like an airport terminal in there with so much baggage. Except for me, of course. Amazing. Well, you want to be free, see? And you run smack into Mount Sinai, the law. Consequences of betrayal written across faces like the curses of the book of Deuteronomy. But I don't want to see all this woundedness. I'll just go to a bigger party, bigger numbers. Why does it take so long to get back to any kind of promised land? Why did the children of Israel wander in the wilderness for 40 years? No direction, no plan. Well, the thing is, deep inside, after a while, you maybe really don't want there to be a plan, a big law. God can keep his plans to himself. You actually avoid direction. Not ready. And you're not ready for this. Come to the time of Israel's kings, when the Hebrews got someone up on a real throne with all the royal honors and accessories. But what you discover in this whole saga, the Kings and Chronicles is that one issue keeps popping up. The issue of sovereignty, who's really on the throne. It's a big issue, often pictured in the Psalms. Do you wave a golden scepter? Do you sit firmly on a throne? Do you find yourself presiding over a tidy castle all alone? There is another sovereign keeping watch in the sky, who touches down on earth in temple prayer and praise, yet unconfined by all the holy houses we may piously raise. So open wide the gates, swing out the ancient voice. The King of glory knocks, his the voice we can't ignore. And even as we practice our prideful kingly arts, his is the throne aimed straight at empty human hearts. Well, David embodies this issue of who's on the throne. Starts out the conqueror of Zion, built himself a grand palace there, famous. And then he ends up fleeing for his life from his own son, Absalom. How'd he go from king to fugitive? Well, you may have heard the mistake. Name of Bathsheba. He stole his most loyal officer's wife. No, God was not on David's throne, high up. Not there at all. That's why he stood on the outside, looking in. Well, for me, this whole issue of who's on the throne just didn't register too well. I was busy rebelling, acting out. Sometimes things just kind of push you away from God's sovereignty. I'd always been able to look up to my dad. Made it easy to believe in a heavenly Father. But then he had a massive stroke. Half of his body mostly paralyzed. He could hardly speak. Hearing about my divorce, he would just, it got to me. And this man didn't want to live and be a burden on his family. This college professor's mind was still the same, but his wonderful words, his loving touch couldn't quite be there. I knew he adored his grandchildren, but couldn't give them a big hug. If God is on his throne, why does he let such a good man go down under everything? So, trying to get a touch, feel good in other places. The Queen Mary. Big numbers at this grand ballroom. Met a woman who appeared, yes, glamorous. Gorgeous gown. We hit it off. She was into writing, too. Even developing a screenplay. Wonderful. Well, we ended up on the deck of the ship, talking and talking till 2 in the morning under the stars. I'm the king. Yeah, I got the number. Well, fast forward a couple of weeks. We're in a nice restaurant. Lori's daughter's there. And I see her arm around this daughter, caressing her wrist. Suddenly realize she's checking the girl's arm for needle marks, trying to find out when she last used heroin. But this terrible family problem wasn't going to break the deal. See, I was going to rescue them. But then when she dropped the daughter off, that's when it hit me, a blank stare. I was trying to say, I can be there for you. She just looked right through me. Not there. How did we go from this high on the Queen Mary, couldn't stop talking, to a complete blank? Nothing there. I couldn't see it at the time. It's about who's on the throne. And I didn't have the faintest idea it's really about idols, idolatry. That became a real issue during the time of the kings. All the way from King Saul, who replaced prophetic guides with sorcerers, to Manasseh, who sacrificed children to bloodthirsty gods. How's that possible? Bloodthirsty gods. Well, when you've lost a loved one, spouse, or a parent, something You want something right here you can grab hold of, see? You can touch. You want comfort. An idol is right there. See? But what does it really do? It gives you a blank stare. There's no touch, no real relationship. That idol, see? Knock on wood, an object you manipulate. But you know what you do when it gives you a blank stare? Find another idol. Israel, for example. Oh, Baal didn't give us nice rain when our crops needed it. Let's try Chemosh. Chemosh didn't deliver us from the marauding Philistines. Let's try Ashtoreth. One idol after another, trying to get a touch, something comforting in all the wrong places. I should have known better because of Adela. Now, growing up there, I'd seen people manipulate religious objects very vividly, and sadly, idols were about the only thing Adela knew. She'd never learned to read or write, and she lived in a world where only images of saints carried weight. Images of saints you give offerings and prayers to. And we weren't good at sharing the living God with Adela. She would see us walk to church every week, carrying our Bibles. That's about it. So many years later, after some noisy party, rebelling, I'd wonder in the dead of night, what became of her after we left Mexico and she went up to this remote mountain village. I'd even pray for Adela out of habit to find the real God. Many nights, in fact. It's one of those habits that just stick with you, really stick with you, even in the midst of rebellion. Pray for her. Pray. Well, couldn't relate to the law. Couldn't relate to who's on the throne. And I certainly couldn't relate to the people ranting about all the idols, the prophets, big prophets. Now, they seem to be on fire for justice. Always ranting about flames, sulfur. You know, Joel throws out a plague of locusts at us. Ezekiel pictures a valley full of dry bones. Zephaniah shows us darkness, distress, blood. Calls it the great day of the Lord. Well, I was sure these prophets needed to lighten up a bit. So much doom and gloom. Prophetic voices. What is that? But then, something happened that made me feel the fire that originated with these Old Testament prophets. Happened because of two tombstones. My father passed away the same year of my divorce, and then my mother died. And a few months after Mom's funeral, my brothers and I go to see her grave marker, little town south of Dallas. And my broken marriage was weighing on me. I'm never going to be cozy again. I was feeling almost suffocated. I had to walk around the cemetery just to get some air. And I suddenly see scores of double tombstones. Couples married way back in the 1920s, 30s, buried side by side. Beloved Agnes, light of my life. Precious husband Charles, my rock. These lovely inscriptions began to cut me like a knife. Yes, I realized my mother is buried here. My father is buried half a continent away in California, and those two are never going to be together in this life. Finally, I acknowledged the loss. I've been running full speed away from a disastrous marriage, sucking in freedom. But now I turn and I see what's left behind. My children will never see their mother and father lying side by side. We'll be miles apart. You finally feel the loss and you grieve. You finally find out what all these dark prophets are really about. These ancient voices. God was sending me a reality check and I finally cashed it. Yes. These dark prophets, this is what you can hear from them. They hear the fracture of a covenant, smell the incense never sent, and slowly in their vivid senses, they grow a capacity to lament. Yes, sometimes sackcloth and ashes are the language we must speak, lest we never feel the parting, hear the tear, the tearful cheek. There are promises we've broken that stood as centuries in the dark, vows we should have held as closely as a law written on the heart. Burned by the memories, branded by every angry name, you finally open up to sorrow, accept the prophet's sad refrain. And only then know how the harlot in you turns slowly into bride. Yes, the longing of that heavenly bridegroom is that deep, that wide. Something happens when we stop running away from that fiery voice of conviction, running away so fast anyway. One of the first steps in finding a home again is actually quiet, being still. I wanted a certain kind of quiet. Quiet I remember in trying to teach Adela to read. Yes, my dear Adela. The woman we thought only knew pagan customs. Well, when I was in the first grade, learning my ABCs, I decided my dear Adela should learn to read too. So I opened up my cuaderno, my notebook, scrawled out the alphabet on the kitchen table, coaxed her into sounding it out with me, A-E-I-O-U. Well, my teaching career soon ended roller skating with Gabrielito, but many years later, I would remember the peace, the quiet of trying to give something as a child. Give. And that stillness prepares you to rediscover, yes, the one who gave, loved without conditions, shows that we can build a home with grace, even when everything around you is falling apart. Now, I've been complaining all this time. Love just makes you vulnerable. But I began to see a man who makes love work anyway, who touched people with surgical skill. It actually started with my children's photo albums. Now see, these are some of the things you can fight about after a divorce. Who gets the original pictures? Thank goodness my ex and I had kept the split pretty amicable, but things come out anyway. Anger, sense of wrongs done to you, and I'd managed to borrow the albums from my ex, and I'm thinking, why should she keep these original photos? Please, think you're a better parent than me? Well, one day I ran across a scene in the Gospels, and it really got to me. It was about mothers bringing their little kids to be blessed by Jesus. Yes. Disciples said, "Don't interrupt the master." Jesus took one little kid on his knee and said, "The kingdom of heaven belongs to people just like them." There's a title passed along to children. Because of their simple faith, they show you how to enter the kingdom of heaven. It's wonderful. A title they could pass along in the playground.